Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and what an honor and a joy to have with us today Brigadier General AJ Tony Tata, U.S. Army retired, author of a great read, the novel 3 Minutes to Midnight, and his service and his credentials are extensive. And so, General, nice to have you, sir. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Perry, for acknowledging that, and I appreciate your support and that of your listeners.
Well, good to see you, my friend. Merry Christmas. Well, listen, a lot to talk about with you. What do you think of Trump's appointment so far?
Well, you know, I know Mike Flynn well, and I think Mike is a great advisor, not only on national security, but just on life and character in general. And Mike has lived a life of public service, and he and I have been on the battlefield many times together, and he couldn't have picked a better man to be his closest advisor, truly. And then when you look across the spectrum there, where you've got Jeff Sessions, who's going to work hard on shoring up our immigration policy, which really needs shoring up. You know, I'm the grandson of Italian immigrants, and you know, they came in through Ellis Island and went to Detroit and carved out a hard scrabble life and did well, lived the American dream, and that's the path to citizenship, and it's a legal one. And so Sessions, I think, will help with that instead of what we've had with the previous two attorneys general. And then when you look at defense, if he's going to go with General Mattis, Mattis is an intellectual. He's a warrior scholar, and he's been on just about every battlefield that America has fought on in the last 30 years. And he's also extremely well read and a deep thinker. And he is not afraid to say what he thinks. And he's had a lot more pressure brought to bear on him than President-elect Trump could ever bring to bear on him. And so he's the kind of guy that would stand up and say, this is the right conflict, this is the wrong conflict to choose, because he loves soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. State, I think it's interesting that he's considering Romney, given the harsh things that Romney said about him. I understand he's trying to unify the party, and it's probably a Machiavellian move to even put him into consideration. Keep your friends close, enemies closer, and by pulling him inside the tent somewhere. You've got Romney, you've got Petraeus, you've got Kelly, General Kelly, and of course Rudy Giuliani, who was lead sled dog. I did many Trump events all over North Carolina, and Giuliani was the lead sled dog for him. So certainly a good pick there if he goes with any of them. I'm not really supportive of the Romney option. And then Elaine Chao for transportation. Trump's talked a lot about investing in transportation and infrastructure, and Vice President-elect Pence talked about $1 trillion of investment there. I was Secretary of Transportation for the state of North Carolina. We spent about $10–12 billion in the 3 years I was Secretary of Transportation, and it's hard to spend that money, but there are ways to do it, and you leverage infrastructure to create jobs, and hopefully that's what Secretary Chao will do. She came from being labor under Bush and will now be transportation, and of course is married to Mitch McConnell, so that's a very Machiavellian strategic move in its own right. So Mike Pompeo at CIA, first in his class at West Point, a fellow West Point graduate. A great guy, lawyer, businessman, congressman, certainly well-rounded. Could have fit any role in the Trump administration and done well. And I think he'll be a great pick for CIA chief. And we could keep talking about Mnuchin and others. There's some question whether or not he went with a Wall Street buddy and insider. But at the end of the day, cabinet picks are as much about being able to get things done as they are about who's going to be loyal to you as the chief executive officer of the country and the commander-in-chief of the country. So that's sort of my first broad brush of several of his top picks.
Interesting, General, because the other one that's now being called to Trump Tower today is John Bolton, former ambassador to the UN, and he's now apparently on the short list for the top diplomat job. The world is a very difficult and very volatile state. Don't we want somebody in the diplomatic job that understands that?
Yeah, no, Bolton, I could think of about 1 trillion people in the world that would be better than Bolton for the job. So what we don't need is a guy like Bolton that believes war is the first option and the best option. And what we need is somebody who's maybe tasted it before, a guy like Kelly or Petraeus, or a guy like Giuliani who felt the sharp edge there in New York City and you know, with 9/11. And so what we need is somebody who understands, not somebody who is a hawk and is of the you know, Rumsfeld and Pearl and Wolfowitz and Feith ilk that sent us on a path that was irretrievable back in 2002 and 2003, and Bolton is of that cloth, and I you know, I'll you know, if he'd give me a pick, there'd be about 1 trillion people I'd pick before Bolton.
Interesting. All right. Let me ask you this. President-elect Trump has been pretty adamant about going after ISIS and defeating it. Now, those are great campaign liners. Is it possible?
Yeah, it's entirely possible. You know, you got to look at how ISIS started, Perry. The whole movement, it was not a natural offshoot, as the Obama administration has marketed, of the wars in Iraq and surrounding areas. We had pretty much secured Iraq, built capacity for government, built capacity for police force, built capacity for military force to defend the nation. When you exit, your exit strategy, you've got to have a plan, but it's also got to have some type of event-driven decision-making matrix in there. And so, you know, President Bush set up a timeline for withdrawal, but being flexible with regard to that timeline is key to leadership. And when President Obama, he just blamed, he said, okay, well, this was Bush's timeline, we're leaving on Bush's timeline. Well, he had the Arab Spring happening, and there was war all over the northern tier of Africa and all throughout the Middle East happening. And then you also had the Syrian civil war and mass exodus of refugees. That was not a time to withdraw all of our troops from Iraq, in particular, all of our communication and intelligence capability that could help us maintain visibility on what was happening. And then when you add into that, when we left, he sort of dusted his hands of the whole effort and declared, you know, I lived up a campaign promise, we're out of Iraq. And then the president's briefer, there's someone in DNI, the Director of National Intelligence Agency, that briefs the president every day. That briefer, whether or not at Obama's request or not, it doesn't really matter, told Central Command, do not give me information about ISIS that says that they're growing in strength, that's counter to the president's narrative. Don't give me that on the record. Call me on secure line if you've got that information, but certainly don't give me any products of record that's counter to the president's narrative. That went on for 2 years, Perry, and so from the time that Iraq was secured and we left in 2011 until it was undeniable that ISIS had taken root and was a threat in 13-14, President Obama was willfully ignoring the intelligence and had asked, at least his briefer had asked, to not be given any kind of intelligence. So now we have ISIS that has deeply rooted inside enclaves that we had won, and these people are war weary. We think we're war weary. They've been back and forth for the last 15, 16 years, and then even before that with Iraq and Iran. And so the way you get to ISIS is to attack across multiple fronts with multiple capacities. You have a deep fight you have a middle fight, you have a close fight, and you destroy their capability. You use combined arms warfare, and you allow the military to do its job, but you also employ all the other elements of power, such as economic sanctions, on Turkey, for example, if they're buying black market oil. You can use diplomatic. Kerry's been nowhere on this ISIS discussion. There's been no coalition to speak of to fight ISIS other than a few, Great Britain, Jordan, U.S., and of course Iraq, and then a few others. And so there's really been no real advancement of the elements of power, of economic, informational, military, diplomatic, geopolitical elements of power that we have as a nation to defeat this very real threat that is radicalizing people all across the world, and a very radical strain of Islamic extremism. And the president won't even call it what it is. So at least we're going to have a president that will identify the enemy as Islamic extremism, and then we will, instead of giving benefit of the doubt to the Omar Mateens or the Somali attackers, from Ohio State University, and having them on the FBI watch list, but letting them go, saying, "Oh, well, you're not our enemy." We may have a different vision and path forward on that.
All right, let me take a quick break here, General. By the way, your book, 3 Minutes to Midnight, available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and around?
Oh, yeah, it's everywhere. You can buy books in bookstores, online, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. It's a great read. Publishers Weekly gave it a starred review. It's has done very well all across, a national bestseller. So it's a great Christmas present, too.
All right, called 3 Minutes to Midnight. And, of course, the General's personal website is ajtata.com. There's a picture of it right there. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Welcome back to Focus Today, and what an honor to have with us today Brigadier General AJ Tony Tata, U.S. Army retired. He's the author of a great read called 3 Minutes to Midnight. There's a picture of it there on the screen. Check it out at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all over the place. As the General said, make a great Christmas gift. And his list of service accomplishments while in the military are quite impressive. And again, General, thank you for your service. By the way, before I get too deep in a couple of other things, how would you rate the morale of the military today after 8 years of Obama?
Yeah, I would say it's ebbed considerably. And in particular, the main reason is because we have not taken care of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines through the Veterans Affairs. And when you look at the VA hospital scandal, that's one of the things, Perry, that was not really discussed as I wanted it to be discussed during the presidential debates and the campaigning, because it is truly scandalous. Obama high-fived himself for getting us out of Iraq and Afghanistan for the most part, and then he just sort of turned his back on the military. And the VA was in shambles. The wait times, people were dying, waiting for care. When you've been at war for 15 or 16 years, there's nothing that's more important to a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, or DOD civilian or Coast Guard man or woman than to know that your comrades are going to be taken care of, or that you're going to be taken care of. And even on the battlefield, I can remember General James Gavin, watching him in a video talking about World War II. He made all 4 big jumps into Sicily and Salerno and Normandy and Holland, and he talked about, your men have to know that even if they're killed on the battlefield, you're going to take them and retrieve them. You're going to do everything you can to return them to their loved ones and give them a proper burial. And that you're wounded, you're going to take them and you're going to treat them and you're going to do everything you can to restore them to whole health, body, and mind. And Obama has completely ignored that. And until it became a scandal, it's kind of like ISIS. Until it became an issue, he reacted, and he was so unprepared to be president. And that he has this fundamental belief that a weaker America makes for a stronger world, and the thing that makes America strong, in part, is its military and the men and women that choose to serve. And so let's weaken that. Let's ignore that. Let's let that atrophy a little bit, is his philosophy, and he did it very well, and it's not lost on the American soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine. Of course, there's exceptions, like with any politician, but by and large, my sense is, my contacts tell me morale is low. The people I talk to, they're frustrated. They want to be taken care of. They want to see their comrades taken care of. And the VA scandal has really been a albatross around the military's neck and moving forward and recruiting, quite frankly.
Wow. A couple of other things, General. Donald Trump has said on several occasions while campaigning and now that he's president-elect that even though he is certainly committed to going after ISIS, he's not committed on making his plans public. He's kind of frustrated that we're going to announce to do something and then it gives the enemy a chance to kind of build up their response. What do you think about that idea?
I think it's absolutely true. Just look at the Obama administration has treated combat as a marketing opportunity. When the brave men and women of Task Force 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment and Navy SEAL Team 6 went into Abbottabad and killed bin Laden, who stands up there and puts a knife in his teeth and says, I killed bin Laden? And it's a marketing opportunity for the president. And then of course it was an important public announcement, but he parlays this into everything is a marketing opportunity for him with regard to the military and the wars. And so we've been announcing for months that we were going to attack Mosul. Well, what do you think ISIS has been doing? They've been listening, they've been watching, they've been digging roadside bombs in, they've been placing trenches, they've been fortifying defenses, they've been putting booby traps and rigging buildings to explode, and you're not hearing much about the progress. You heard some initial stuff, and that there's some suburbs that have been secured, but it's going to be a tough slog to get into Mosul, which, frankly, we had on our side in 2003 with Dave Petraeus and the 101st Airborne Division. My old combat brigade, the 2nd Brigade, the 502nd Infantry, was part of the team that went in there, and Mosul was secure. Sure, it was still a Wild West city, but we had secured it and had done, Dave Petraeus had led classic counterinsurgency operations, and you've got a financing center in Mosul with banks. It's a big trade route, nexus of trade routes. You've got a huge lake there, a reservoir with a hydroelectric dam that provides power all across the northern tier of Iraq. And of course, you got oil in that area. And so it's so strategic to ISIS. They're not going to give it up without a fight. And we've already had Americans killed in that fight in advisory roles. And so it's going to be a tough fight. It is a tough fight. And it's because Obama has been saying, well, we're going to take back Mosul. And it's just ridiculous. And so President-elect Trump saying, he said two things. One is, I'm not going to tell you what my plan is. And two, we're going to have a plan within 30 days of inauguration to defeat ISIS. I can promise you my friends in the Pentagon are working on that plan right now. And at least the military ones. The civilian ones are probably sabotaging things because they're Obama acolytes. But, you know, the military ones I know are working hard to pull together a plan so that it's not some patchwork piece. And think about D-Day, World War II, and the head fake we did there up in Calais, and then we came down to Normandy, and you know, everybody knew that something was coming, but we didn't say where we were attacking. And in fact, we did deliberate deception north of Normandy, which ended up freezing several tank divisions, which allowed the beachhead to be secured. And it's that kind of thing that President-elect Trump is talking about.
Wow, that's great. Again, let me just say to our viewers and listeners, check out the General's book, 3 Minutes to Midnight. It's available. There's a picture of it there on the screen. He proudly holds it up, too. And you can get it for a Christmas gift. Check it out at Barnes & Noble, Amazon. I wish I had you for about 3 days, General, but let me ask you one last question. If you had President-elect Trump's ear, given your background, what advice would you give him?
You know, that's thanks for that question, because I've served as a general in the military. I've been superintendent of the 16th largest school system in the nation and Secretary of Transportation of the 2nd largest transportation system in the nation. And so I know broadly what our nation needs from a security and education and an infrastructure standpoint. And I would say to focus really on those 3 things. And when I look at Betsy DeVos as Education Secretary, I think he's got the right person there. I was hoping Michelle would get it, but I'm pretty sure she probably declined for her own personal reasons. But I worked with Michelle Reed for 2 years in Washington D.C. and school choice is so important for all Americans, whether it's homeschool, religious school, private school, public charter school, or public school system. And I would say focus on national security, focus on infrastructure, strengthen the nation through education, and if he focuses on those 3 pillars and those 3 pillars alone, stay away from the crazy social issues and focus on what he knows best: business and decision making, and build a good national security team, build a good infrastructure team, and build a good education team. And that's, to me, if you're doing those 3 things, you're going to have a nation headed in the right direction.
That's great advice. It looks like former governor and vice president nominee Sarah Palin may become head of the Veterans Affairs. Your thoughts?
Well, I walked through the USO with Sarah Palin when I was a freshly retired general, been out of the Army about a year. I was doing work with the USO Metro D.C., to whom I give a large portion of my royalties every year. I've given, I want to say, over $35,000 in total to help families of wounded veterans. And I walked with Sarah Palin through Walter Reed. I escorted her with the president of the USO Metro D.C., Elaine Rogers, and she visited every soldier. Her new book was out. She gave a copy of her book to every wounded soldier. We had soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines with, that had been dismembered, that were severely wounded, traumatic brain injury. The compassion she showed was tremendous. Her husband was with her, and their young child was, their youngest was with her, and they went into every single soldier's room. And she was on tour. She didn't have to do this. I convinced the Palin camp that this would be a good opportunity, and she leapt on it. Once the word got to her, she jumped on it. So I think she, what I saw in her that day in the USO, or in the Walter Reed Medical Center, she's got the chops to do this. She cares about veterans. She has a son that was in the military, and her daughter is dating a former military Medal of Honor recipient. So I think she's got all the right chops to do that job.
Right. General, you're a delight. Thank you, sir. I know your time is highly scheduled, and we value the moments you've given us today. I want to say to our viewers and listeners again, go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, look for this book right here. It's called AJ Tata, 3 Minutes to Midnight. You can also correspond with him through his own website at ajtata.com. Thank you, General. Let's connect again. God bless you, my friend, and Merry Christmas.
God bless you and Merry Christmas. Thanks, Perry.
Okay, we'll be right back.